Science Fact or Science Fiction by Danny Wells, Year 11.
Chocolate makes you live longer. Carrots help you to see in the dark. If you go outside with wet hair, you'll catch a cold. These are some of the old wives' tales that have been passed down through generations. If I had £1 for every time my mum stopped me leaving the house with wet hair, I'd be rich. But are all old wives' tales false, or does modern science back any of them up? I've been to see GP Dr. Jane Turner to ask if there's any scientific proof for any of these common myths. Don't go swimming for an hour after you've eaten. My mum and dad often say this. They say it's to avoid muscle cramps because the body is busy digesting the food. Interestingly, Dr. Turner thinks there's an element of truth to this. She told me, "I wouldn't agree it has to be an hour, that seems too long to me. But I would say if you've had a big meal, you should at least wait until you've started to digest it. I'd say at least 15 or 20 minutes would probably be enough." Feed a cold, starve a fever. I've never fully understood what it meant, so I asked Dr. Turner to explain it. Well, this is saying, if you have a cold, eat and drink well, but if you have a fever, don't. It's totally wrong, and I believe it's based on a misunderstanding with the word starve. Originally, the saying used to be, feed a cold, stave off a fever. This means eat and drink well to prevent your cold developing into a fever. That was probably sensible advice. You should try to eat and drink well as it's important to avoid dehydration. And if your body doesn't get the vitamins and nutrients it needs, it loses strength. If you have a cold, eat chicken soup. We've all heard this one, haven't we? And Dr. Turner agreed. I think it's probably good advice. Unless you're vegetarian or vegan, of course. A bowl of chicken soup is comforting, so it may well have a positive psychological effect. Also, I've heard of a study which suggests it may reduce inflammation, so it's worth a try. So, what about going outside with wet hair? Does it inevitably lead to getting a cold? Or can I tell my mum she's wrong? No, this one's not true at all. Colds are caused by viruses, not wet hair or generally being cold. This has actually been tested several times. They've split people into 2 groups, one where the people were warm and one where the people were cold. They then exposed them to a virus. There was no difference between the 2 groups in terms of how many people caught a cold.